Money Radio, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure now to welcome Jonathan Furman. He is the founder of Furman Transformation, FurmanTransformation.com. Jonathan, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Sinclair.
And please explain to us what Furman Transformation is.
Absolutely. So Furman Transformation launched about 5-6 months ago. What we do is it's a management consulting firm. And essentially the idea behind Furman Transformation is to analyze a company from the sales, marketing, and operational growth perspective, find out where they need the most help, and then to be able to put together and devise a plan of action for them that's going to have the best effect on what they're trying to do, the best effect on the strategic growth, and ultimately take them to that next level and get them where they need to be.
To that end, I wanted to talk with you today specifically about Snapchat and Instagram, and perhaps you can explain the difference between the two.
Absolutely. So I think this is a really interesting piece because right now, Facebook has actually declared war on Snapchat, and it's very interesting what's going on because you've got Snapchat, which Facebook had offered $3 billion to purchase. This was back in 2012. You know, they saw an opportunity, they saw something they were doing, and it was definitely a hot trend, a hot fad, and it was catching on. Since then, Spiegel, who's the founder of Snapchat, had actually turned it down, decided, hey, we're going to keep pumping this up, we're going to ramp this up, we're going to do it on our own. After IPO, now they're worth something like estimated value 15 to 25 billion. So now what's happening is you've got an app, and what Snapchat really is it's essentially a spin on Instagram, but what they're doing and why it's genius is that they found a way to essentially bring people out of the whole culture of networking, of networks, where, a lot of these millennials that are growing up into social networks feel, I see in a lot of cases that they have to portray themselves in a certain way. The content that they're putting on, the pictures that they're putting on to share with their friends are sort of the most pristine, polished version of themselves as opposed to their genuine, authentic self. So Snapchat had a very good insight in essentially encouraging self-expression, the way that the app works. So it's a very, very, very interesting app. But at the end of the day, it's just an app. There were apps before this, there are apps after this, and a lot of them are very similar to do exactly what Snapchat's doing. But what Snapchat has is that social power behind it. They were able to really drive a core of millennials to it. Now, what's happening is because they were essentially denied Facebook's offer, Facebook's now ramping up. And so they did a couple imitations of the app. They had Poke, they had another one. But what's happening now is Facebook's bought Instagram. Instagram is coming out with a feature that is very similar to Snapchat. In April of this year, Zuckerberg announced that they were going to be putting out Facebook camera effects. And essentially what this would do is actually integrate a very similar aspect of what Snapchat is, pretty much to a T, but across the entire neutral platform. So what you're talking about is actually making this a feature of the Facebook platform, which would dictate all content and all apps and everything that runs through it, the behemoth that Facebook is. So it's a really interesting position to wonder as a shareholder or as an investor for Snapchat, a company who hasn't made a single dime in revenue yet, hasn't even monetized, what's going to happen to them? I mean,
This is the question. Can they maintain their significance when they're doing battle against something as big as Facebook?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And I think it's going to be a very, very difficult road because they've been around 6 years. They haven't even monetized the app yet. So right now, it's all hype. Granted, they do have a very, very extensive user base, mostly millennials, some Gen Z. But the fact of the matter is, like I said, there's other apps that are doing it. The only thing that they really have going for them is the brand value, the social value of it being cool. So to that point, they're starting to try along that line of expanding outside just the app. They just put out Snapchat Spectacles, which is similar to like a Google Glass, but it's like a trendy little, something that's coming through. You can tell it's got a fad. idea to it. You know, the little sunglasses, it's got a camera, essentially allows you to make your Snapchat stories via video. But essentially, it's just riding on that same fad.
Here's the key question, though. What can we learn from the Snapchat story? What are the implications for maybe a small tech company that's just up and coming?
I think that's a great question. So I would say the first implication, number one, is if you get an offer, any offer, you know, whether it's $5 million or $100 million or $3 billion, I think you should probably just make the consideration of selling. You know, and most entrepreneurs, they don't want to do it, and I don't blame them, because the whole idea of entrepreneurship is you get in because you want to create something. You're not really doing it for the money. Most real entrepreneurs, they're in it because they want to create something. So it's hard to essentially say, I'm going to take money and I'll walk away from my dream and let someone else do it. But when you're talking about $3 billion, and not just $3 billion, but $3 billion from Facebook, you know, a known company that is doing huge things that, you know, can take that product that you've developed and bring it to a whole nother level. Well, now you're going to allow that product to have another life of its own. It might make sense to do that. So implication number one was, you know, consider selling. You know, take those poker chips and you know, moving them on to something else. Look at Elon Musk. You know, so
right.
His one of his first companies, PayPal, sold that for whatever it was, $100 million. Sold it to eBay, and now look at him. He's got Tesla. He's got SpaceX. I mean, he's doing bigger things than NASA. You know what I mean? When you're talking about SpaceX. So I think number one is really consider selling and consider what that means and what you can do and what that'll allow you to do for future ideas.
A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, I suppose. Jonathan Furman at Furman Transformation, FurmanTransformation.com, if you'd like to find out more information. Jonathan, interesting story. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Sinclair.